Hi everyone, welcome to this 3-part series where we're breaking down the grade of a real project. Throughout the process, I'll be using a few custom built DCTLs available in my store, some free, some paid. If you're mostly interested in working fully with Resolve's native tools, this video might not be right for you, though you may still pick up some useful workflow tips. But if you're curious about branching out with external tools, then this video is definitely for you. In part 1, I set up my colour management, grouped my clips and applied a preset node tree to all shots. One of the most fun aspects of grading in my opinion is look development, finding a project level aesthetic that benefits every image and wraps them together into a cohesive overall look. For this phase, I'm working at the post group level, but before my ODT, which is my conversion to Rec 709 Gamma 2.4. I leave this as the last node in the pipeline because ODTs have both technical and creative considerations. Moving things post ODT can undo some of the careful work a DRT has done to protect your image, so this is generally a good principle to follow. For this look, I'll be using two of my custom DCTLs, LookBank and Neutral Bias. I've covered both in earlier videos, I'll link those on screen now if you'd like a deeper dive. LookBank is essentially a modular toolkit for looks, divided into 4 sections: contrast, split, palette, and modifier. Think of it like an album of LUTs you can instantly flip through with sliders, mixing and matching until you land on the perfect vibe. Neutral Bias, on the other hand, is a saturation versus balance tool. It lets me selectively push a colour bias into the image to create colour contrast. Let's start building the look with LookBank. The project already has a fair bit of contrast from the DRT, so I'm going with a preset that uses a moderate curve. Preset 5 has the fill I'm after, but since it's so quick to audition all 10, I'll cycle through them just to be sure. Some presets are deliberately strong right out the gate so you can see their character, but you can always dial the strength back, or even start lower around 0.5 for a more subtle foundation. For this shot, preset 5 is a great fit. With the curve overlay on, you can see how it modifies the shape of the contrast. Next up is split. For this grade, I want a gentle warm cool separation in the highlights and shadows, something subtle and not heavy-handed. Preset 10 nails this vibe. Under the hood, it uses a saturation mask, so the split only affects the more colourful parts of the image. Even when I know the look that I'm after, I still like to scroll through all the options. Sometimes another preset surprises me, but here preset 10 works really well. I'll just back off the strength to keep it understated. Next comes palette, which shapes hue reproduction. The red-green relationship is most important here, since this footage is full of skin tones and foliage. Preset 3 warms up the greens just enough, exactly what I want. Again, I'll dial it back slightly to keep things balanced. The key is moderation. When you combine all of these effects, the overall look will be strong, so each element should be fairly reined back to begin with. Finally, the modifier section, which will be the more experimental side of this look. So again, I'll scroll through the options, and here I like preset 6, which creates a bleached, filmic feel by boosting saturation in the shadows and desaturating the highlights. This adds perceptual contrast without actually changing the curve, enriching the shadows while giving the highlights a lighter fill. I'll set the strength to around 0.5 so the effect stays subtle. One workflow tip I really like is to create a layer mixer, copy over LookBank and start from scratch. This lets you experiment without any preconceived notions, then toggle between your builds to quickly compare looks. For this project I prefer the original Look 1, but experimenting like this is always valuable. It either confirms your instincts or highlights new creative opportunities. Now I've got LookBank dialed in, I'll head into Neutral Bias. This project probably isn't the best to highlight this tool, because this tool really shines in projects where you need to imbue frames with colour contrast, and hit neutral surfaces such as white walls with a strong isolated colour cast. However, I really love how this tool can still sneak that colour contrast in frames such as this, where there's higher saturation frame contents, and stretch the colour separation a little further. So for this project, I want that warm green bias snuck into the lower saturation areas of the image, so I'll introduce a warmer temp and green tint and then walk the sat key far to the left side, which means the effect will be constrained to the low saturations only. And you can see how this introduces a colour bias, but doesn't leave the overall image feeling washed out or overwhelmed. If I now deactivate these look nodes, you can see the net effect that these adjustments have, and how each individual part, even though low in strength, really mixes in with the others to create a strong overall look. And that wraps up the look development phase. In the final episode, we'll dive into individual shots to ensure the project feels cohesive and each clip is optimized independently. Thanks for watching.